Well, thank you very much for being here. I want to thank my Cajun grandparents from Southwest Louisiana, who were my inspiration to learn about organic farming and treating animals on the farm in a humane way, and living a reverence for Mother Earth. And I grew up in southeast Texas, which is a little bit like Alberta. It's known as Cancer Alley down there, the area from Houston to Baton Rouge. And it was horrible to grow up and watch the oil and chemical companies destroy the beautiful area that I grew up in. It was also horrible to see the oil and chemical companies, first take over Texas, then take over the United States, and then take over most of the world. So I'm coming at this from love in a way, but I'm also coming from this with anger. I am tired of these fossil fuel companies and their collaborators believing that profit comes before the survival of the earth. And we have to take them down, and take them down hard if we're going to survive. It's us or them. So I'm a little angry because I watched on television a few weeks ago in my hometown, underwater, Hurricane Harvey. I've watched two hurricanes sweep over. They weren't even reported in the media, Pacific hurricanes. Sweep over Mexico, flood, kill people. Now I'm watching the Caribbean become literally uninhabitable because of runaway global warming. And I say that we're going to have to do something about this. So I'm here tonight to talk about how we're going to build a global grassroots campaign to educate the majority of the people of the world about this potential of regenerative food farming and land use to turn things around. Not just the fact that we can reverse climate change, we can also reverse rural poverty, where 3 billion people of the world live in rural areas. We can also reverse deteriorating public health. 4 billion of the people on the earth we're above subsistence. We're consumers, but we are going down fast. In the United States today, 40% of adults have chronic diseases. Half the guys can look forward to getting cancer. The rates of chronic disease among our children and grandchildren are skyrocketing. We also need to deal with the fact that out of control corporations, indentured politicians, greedy consumers, brainwashed people are allowing a situation of endless war to unfold. The United States has been at war since 1991 in the latest phase, and we keep starting new wars almost every year. The peace movement is one of the groups we need to reach out to. That's why I'm wearing my beret and my peace symbol here tonight. A major reason why we're having wars is environmental devastation and climate change. The Fertile Crescent, Iraq, and Syria, this is the solution to this problem of global warming and deteriorating public health and rural poverty and increasing conflict and war are all the same. We got to come together as a global community and regenerate the earth, but also regenerate what I call the global grassroots. Because I maintain that the major problem out there is that people are disheartened and hopeless. My teenage son told me, he said, "Daddy, we know about climate change." He said, "All my friends, he said, the reason most of them aren't activists is because we don't believe anything can be done about it, you know. And I mean, he's not quite 20 years old, you know. And I look at he and his friends, you know, and I look at what we have to do. So what we are going to do is build a global movement, an alliance. It's not only the 750 million farmers and herdspeople and ranchers and land managers and the 3 billion people who constitute rural communities that need to make this regenerative change. It's the consumers, you know, the 4 billion of us. So if we don't build an alliance and start today between farmers and producers and consumers, we are going to live in climate hell. We're already seeing the preview of that today in Northern California. I mean, where I was speaking at Baker Creek Seed Festival 2 months ago, I was watching today, the houses are burning down. You know, tonight the wind is going to be 60 miles an hour. They can't stop it, you know. The Amazon is burning, more fires than ever before. We are staring into the abyss, which you know. Okay. How are we going to do this? It's not enough that we have best practitioners out there who are actually starting to regenerate the soil and restore wetlands and restore forests and so on and so forth. We got to have market share. You know, consumers are buying $7.7 trillion of food right now in the world. 7.7 trillion. Would you like to venture what the market share is of organic and beyond organic regenerative is? We got a ways to go. We are not going to be able to save civilization and the earth without a massive change in consumer awareness and consumer buying habits. You know, consumers are degenerates right now, is what it comes down to. Degenerates. We used to talk in the 60s about capitalism and imperialism and you know, how we were going to have anarcho-communism and socialism and share everything. Yeah. Well, now it's degeneration or regeneration, you know, and we can do that. Some of the ways we can do that you're going to hear about later in this conference. But I want you to pick up, if you will, some literature when you get a chance upstairs. One of them is a pamphlet we put out just yesterday from Regeneration International. It's called First Steps Toward Building a Regeneration Movement in Your Local Community. Now, why is this important? Well, I think if you did a poll in the United States and Mexico and Canada, what you'd find is that 95, 97% of the people have never heard of regenerative food farming and land use. So we got to change that. We got to open up a conversation and build a grassroots movement that is more powerful than any grassroots movements we've been able to build in the last 50 years. How do we do that? Well, this pamphlet it's addressed to you. People always say after I give a talk, well, yeah, Ronnie, well, what do we do? You know, so we decided today, this is what you do. You know, it's right out on the table out there. But step one is what we're already doing, which is each and every one of us in this room has to become very well grounded in what we're talking about, regenerative food farming and land use. No one else can do this. You have to go to the website of Regeneration International, go to the website of the Carbon Underground, go to the website of Soil for Life. Start to learn. You know, here's the primer, the scientific primer that everyone has got to read and be able to talk about. Jack Kittredge's piece, Soil Carbon Restoration, Can Biology Do the Job? We've translated this into 14 languages so far for Regeneration International. There's French as well as English versions here. We have to be able to explain the basics of regeneration. And we have to be able to explain it in terms that lay people can understand. Here's the way I explain it. There's 800 billion tons of carbon in the atmosphere, and there's way too much carbon in the oceans. We have to get back to the situation where there were 600 billion tons of carbon in the atmosphere, not 800 billion. And we have to do this over the next 25 years, like 4 for 1,000 initiative points out. That's it. If we don't get that excess carbon, you know, out of the atmosphere, put it into the soil, put it into the forest, put it into the wetlands, you know, preserve the peat bogs, develop a consumer consciousness where people reward farmers for doing the right thing, we are not going to make it. Well, how in the hell are we going to move 200 billion tons of carbon, multiply that by 3.67 if you want to know the CO2 equivalent. Well, how are we going to move 200 billion of tons of carbon back down from the atmosphere and put it where it belongs, where it'll do some good? Well, you've got to be able to explain this to people. Well, we got 10 billion hectares of cropland, pasture land, and forest on the earth. 10 billion hectares. All right, well, if we have to remove 10 billion tons of carbon every year and do it for 25 years, well, 1 ton of carbon per hectare of land. And this isn't just cropland. This is pasture land. There's twice as much pasture land and rangeland as there is cropland. And then there's, you know, more forest even than there are pasture land. So that's why I say regenerative food farming and land use. This is not just about regenerative agriculture. And it's certainly not just about crop growing, organic and beyond to regenerative. Well, a billion tons per hectare, is this 1 ton per hectare on 10 billion hectares. Is this feasible? Well, all I know is I know farmers who are sequestering 10 to 17 tons of carbon per hectare right now. This isn't some science fiction. This is happening. People like David Johnson in New Mexico, people like Gabe Brown in North Dakota. I mean, I see it on our farm in Mexico. I mean, where the chickens are roaming in a regenerative poultry, the corn when I left last week was this high, all right? The corn where the chickens weren't roaming, the corn was about that high. It's like all the campesinos around the valley there, they can see that. They want corn this high, right? And so they want to feed their families first and foremost. They don't want their kid to have to, you know, pay money to the cartels to risk their life to go up and cross the border into Texas or New Mexico or Arizona and be treated like a wetback, you know, if you live that long to get there, and then thrown in jail by the fascists in the Trump administration. They want their kids to be able to stay home. So, first step, there are no organizers for Regeneration International except you. And how do you know if you're ready to get out and recruit people, right? Well, it's very simple. Read this, for example, you know. Try to explain it to people in your family, you know, or your friends. If you can explain it and inspire them, you are learning it. If you can't, go back and read it again until you can. We are all going to become organizers. And we have an amazing tool as we become organizers, as we form a core group, as we reach out to all the groups that are out there. In the United States, for example, we have 30,000 cities and towns. How many regeneration committees do we need? 30,000. That's it. You know, in the world, you know, we've got 6 million cities and towns and villages. We need committees in every one of those. And it starts with a person learning the materials, being able to deliver it, and we're talking hitting people in the heart, not just in the head. But we also have this fantastic global agreement called the 4 for 1,000 initiative. I recommend, don't try to explain 0.004 of the total amount of carbon in the first meter or the first couple of meters. Don't try to go to Southeast Texas and explain that to people. But if you put it the way I put it, we got to suck down as much carbon as we're putting up, and we need to do that for 25 years while we go to zero emissions of fossil fuels. If we do all that, we're going to survive. If we don't, we're going to die. You know? And it's the brilliance of 4 for 1,000 is that it's a road. It's a road that we're all starting on together. Now, maybe only 40 countries out of 200 in the world have signed on so far, but all 200, I guarantee you, are going to sign on before it's over. Maybe we've only got 500 nonprofit, non-governmental organizations that have signed on to 4 for 1,000. But you know how many we're saying we need in this pamphlet in 3 years? We need 100,000 NGOs signed on to this 4 for 1,000 agreement, the global plan, the global pledge to suck down as much carbon as we're putting up there and start this process. And we can do it. We can do it. That's, you know, we got 200 countries in the world. Let's get 5,000. Church groups, student groups, universities, labor unions, farm groups, you know, groups, you know, civil society groups. How do you get them to sign up? Well, you learn how to be a good preacher, a bearer of this good news, A. B, you find the open-minded person in that group who will listen to you. C, you go convince them, you know. D, you make a presentation at the church or wherever it is, at the university, and you get a conversation going that's going to culminate in the first stage. They got to sign on to the 4 for 1,000. It's very easy. Go to the website, sign up. Obviously, a group is not going to do this until they've had internal discussion and debate. You know, the whole point of doing this is to engage conversation, you know, first with hundreds of thousands of people, then millions of people, and to go forward. We will implement as we go forward. In Mexico, for example, where I spend half my time, the Mexican government has signed on to the 4 for 1,000 initiative, but they don't know what they signed on to, a lot of them, or they're not really, it was PR for some of them. But our job is now to go to the Mexico City government, which is, you know, a quarter of the people in the country. The Mexico City government is slightly different. They are alarmed about this, and they are going to listen to us, and we're going to get Mexico City, we're going to get the major cities in Mexico, in the U.S., in Canada, to sign on to this thing, and then we're going to network together and implement it. Next week, I'm going to Guatemala City. We are forming Regeneration Guatemala at the National University. And we are going to keep doing this every place we can. So please read the materials that we brought up. They were written especially for you, because each one of you is going to stop being a degenerator starting tonight. And you are going to take the vows to be a regenerator, and we are going to transform the entire world food, farming, and land use system. And along with it, we're going to take down this corrupt political and economic structure that's going to kill us all. Thanks a lot.